My lovies, welcome to Nurse Kim Live. It is Saturday, August 10th, 2024, and we have an incredible guest with us today. I wanted to reach out to someone who is incredibly inspiring to me, somebody who I have watched help her community in so many different ways. And I know that this isn't just something that is new to her. She is a queen in my eyes. And without further ado, let me introduce to you the Queen of Canton herself, Miss Rita Lombardi.
Oh, what an intro. What an intro.
My gal.
Thank you so much. That's such a nice intro. Thank you. I'm just regular, ordinary citizen, me, Rita Lombardi, just doing the right thing for my town and, stepping up when you need to step up.
Yeah. So. And Rita, that's so, I love that you say I'm just Rita, right? Like I'm just a citizen, but it's so important in these times, specifically when we're going through injustices and local government. We need to have those people who rise up from us, right? That are just like our peers, our neighbors, our friends that say no more. And you are in my mind, yes, you are the it girl of no more, right? Like we're done. We no longer subscribe to the Canton Police Department doing what they feel is, on their up and up, right? And that there are specific members of the community, and it's the majority of the community who gets the brunt of consequences and things going bad, and then they're protected all the time by each other.
Exactly. And so I like to borrow a line from In Living Color, in which Homie the Clown says, "Homie, don't play that game." So Homie don't play that game.
And Rita, we just gotta, you are basically, what you are is grassroots, right? Like the thing is that you sit there and you just said to yourselves, I see that my community needs a leader, and you are that leader in this time. Do you not feel that, naturally leaders, rise up? And I think it was just the perfect timing, right? That it was just like you said, I don't want this, but I'm showing up and I have to do it for the bettering of our community.
100%. So when I stepped forward, I didn't step forward to be a leader. I stepped forward to be a voice. And I've been a leader my entire career. I tell people I'm 64 years old and I'm in my semi-retirement years. And I left the corporate leadership world in 2017 after a phenomenal run. Everything I've done in my life has launched me to the next level in my life. And so I'm in my semi-retirement years. People know where I work, but I don't share it because I have to keep my work separate from what I do. I just keep it separate. But it's not the pressure of working in the jobs that I have worked before. So when all of this happened, and I was not involved in Canton politics before the Karen Reed case. Mm-hmm. I was not. I mean, and I tell people, I worked full time. I got out of high school. I moved out. I worked full time. I went to college 14 years nights to earn my degree. And I had my daughter 2 weeks before commencement. So then I went right into motherhood. And so I was working full time. So I never stopped. I've worked my entire life, morning, noon, and night. It's just who I am. And and I've had a phenomenal career. And what I have done is I either built teams from the ground up or turned around poorly performing teams, always in crisis management situations, always. And that's just what it was. And that's just how my career evolved. That's just how it was. And so when this happened, when I became aware of this case, I knew about it because it's in my neighborhood. I live in Canton. Mm-hmm. The murders in my neighborhood. So I knew about it. I lived in Canton 45 years. I raised my kids here. My dad, grew up here till he was like 13. He's got relatives here. And my kids are now grown. They're 28 and 30. And they're both nurses, like you. And so, they're on their own. And so I heard about this case. And when I heard about it, and I was listening to Turtle Boy, I didn't even know who he was before then.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was listening to him, I had to like block out some things that just didn't, I couldn't hear. Excuse me.
No worries.
And so,
Totally go.
hold on a second. Excuse me. Oh,
No
forget
worries.
it. I'm not saying anything. I'm on the phone.
Girl chat, we're having a FaceTime, guys. This is what happens, okay? We're living our best life. It's Saturday. Rita can do what she wants. Answers the phone. Get up and leave, Rita. Come back in 10 minutes. I love you. You can do whatever you want.
I'm right here. I'm on the show, please. I know I did. I was joking. So anyways, I heard the show, and, I had to block out what I wasn't used to what I was hearing to get to the issues. And what I heard could not be ignored. And I knew I had the expertise to help Cameron Reed. I knew I did. And I knew that it was going to be tremendous sacrifice personally. And I knew it was going to be risky. I knew a lot. I knew what I was getting into, but there was an innocent woman being framed for murder that happened in my town. And I was not going to sit on the sidelines for that. I was not. And I knew that I could help her. And so I stepped forward to help her. And in doing so, I started going to the select board meetings because Chris Albert had run for select board in January. He took out papers in January 2023, a year after John O'Keefe was murdered. Mm-hmm. And the select board just happens to oversee the Canton Police Department, which is where Chris Albert's brother Kevin is a detective there, and was in the vicinity of evidence in this case that he never should have been. And in the vicinity, he's picking up witnesses to go and get interviewed with Michael Proctor. A lot of things that should not have happened. Right. And because Chris decided to run for select board, and we wanted answers from the select board because they oversee the police department, that is really how things started to become unraveled here in Canton. And Chris refused to resign, which in retrospect, it's over a year now later. Mm. And, I'm kind of grateful that he refused to resign, because if he resigned, all of these other things that came out, we may not have ever known. And because he refused to resign and the select board refused to lead and do what was right for this town and urge him to resign, we are where we are right now. And so the more I went to select board meetings, the more I asked questions, the more we uncovered. And, and as we uncovered things, the threats escalated. In the fall, I received threatening letters with 3 other people. And we know who wrote those letters, the people that don't want us to talk. So mm-hmm. Everybody knows who doesn't want us to talk. It's McAlbert, Jimmy, and friends. And, and there were multiple authors, and there were other things that happened, to try to silence people. And somewhere along the way, they were successful in silencing people. And myself and some others were still standing. And when people, they're bullies. And with bullies, you stand up to bullies. And that is exactly what I'm doing, is I'm standing up to bullies. And it's great.
I love that about you, Rita. And I definitely want to get into more the personal aspects and the sacrifices that you've made, not just personally for your time, but also to be perfectly honest and blunt with everyone, her safety, right, guys? Yes. This is Rita literally putting herself on the line also, not just in standing up for another woman who, was being falsely accused. She has now put herself on the front line of attack, in my opinion, as well. Correct, Rita?
Oh, 100%. Any one of us that speaks out. Jennifer O'Donnell is a perfect example. We made a list in the last month of all the incidents that we have been experiencing in this town. We had a list of over 30, and Jennifer had 11 on that list. 11, and everybody saw, the world saw her get assaulted the other day. The last time we had an in-person select board meeting, she was assaulted by the cop, and it's outrageous. It's outrageous, and you know, that cop, you know, that's a failure of Helena Rafferty. He's her employee. She hired him. And I think she's trying to say that the select board hired him. No. The chief of police hires the staff. She's ultimately, the buck stops at the chief. And, you know, he's a hire of hers, and he's also from the town. Even though he was a Boston police officer and lives in Norwood, he grew up in this town. That's what I've been told. And he knows this town, and he knows the townies. And so when Jennifer was speaking and Mike Lofgren was doing whatever he was doing behind the desk, the people in the crowd, the McAlberts, were heckling her and were encouraging the cop to throw her out. And for going 15 seconds over her, you know, 3 minutes. And, you know, it's ridiculous. It's not right. And so that's the kind of threats, you know, now they throw bleach on our property. And we know who did that too, although we can't prove it. But, you know, we do know that a certain someone had a fetish for lawns, and that they refer to John O'Keefe as Nevercracker. So we know that. We also know somebody reached out to me after the incident was reported and said that certain someone who no longer goes to Bridgewater University also had a fetish for pranks and bleach balloon bombs while he was at Bridgewater. I'm just stating facts. This is what people came to me and told me. This is what they did. Yes. And we also know, I'm not accusing anybody. I want to get those people. Yeah, I'm just giving you facts, guys. You draw your own conclusions.
Of course.
And then we also know Mike Blank lives diagonally across the street from Brenda and Dennis Sweeney. And we know just before Dennis smelt the bleach, right around that time frame, Colin pulled out of Mike Lang's driveway and did a U-turn, did a circle in front of Dennis's house and looked Dennis right in the face as if to say, remember my face. And so you got three things that happened there. And we have Colin placed right there outside the property in his car, looking at the homeowner in his face. So you put all those three things together, and I think it's reasonable for someone to suspect, you know who,
correct,
somewhat involved. So, you know, that's what we have. And unfortunately, my cameras were not working. I had just changed my service.
Yeah.
And I had, so in changing my service, I didn't realize it stopped my recording. And so, but my recording is back on now, and I love to see my security footage. I look at it, and it's a wonderful thing to have. So,
just so everyone knows, Rita's her security footage is back up, babes. So
yes.
You know, she's able to look through it and comb through it. So if anybody, you know, had any negative thoughts or ideas, I wouldn't. You know what I mean? Yes. Like you seem like an F around and find out kind of gal anyway.
Exactly.
But exactly. You know, homie, don't play that game. Okay.
Exactly. Homie's not playing those games. And
no.
My neighbors have security footage.
Fantastic.
So, you know, unfortunately, it was tough to pinpoint the exact day for me that the bleach hit. Because, you know, you hit it with the bleach and then it takes maybe a day or two for it to die. It takes it to die. But you can see, looking at the lawn, like there's one streak that's like 30, 40 feet long. You know, the balloon went and splattered forward. I mean, you can see it. But, you know, I mean, that's just the mentality. To throw bleach on someone's property, and he came up on my property. Whoever did it came up on my property because he couldn't have hit where he hit without coming up on my property.
Well, and Rita,
I have no trespassing signs.
Oh yeah, insane. Yeah. But I was even thinking about. I'm so sorry. I was just thinking about your. There was another resident that had said that the bleach was on their vegetables, and I just thought, like, as a nurse, I was saying, you put it on someone's garden, on their food that they would give to themselves, their family. You know, donate anything. Like you could have poisoned someone. This isn't like cosmetic. This is now you're attempting to cause bodily harm to someone.
Yeah, 100%. That's Dennis and Sweeney's property. And Dennis and Brenda, what did I say? Dennis and Sweeney. Dennis Sweeney and Brenda Sweeney's property. And they live the next street over from me. And it absolutely. And what Dennis, so they have the front of their house is where they grow their vegetables and their flowers. And they grow them every year to give to their neighbors, to share them with their neighbors. Imagine that. And so half the crop is gone. Half the front yard is gone. The crop is gone. And, they've got to deal with the soil. I've got to deal with the soil. I've got bleach in my soil. So you just can't pull up the dead grass and grow grass. You have to address the toxins now in the soil. And, whoever did this just did not care about human life, did not care. And so, those three pieces of information, look, the police have the balloons, and Brenda was talking to her neighbor right after we reported it to the police that day. And the neighbor reported, because this is a big walking neighborhood, and the neighbor reported seeing a discarded bag with 2 balloons that were full of fluid. It's the sauce bag. So we went and we saw the sauce bag. And so basically they had they had them in a Target bag, and the Target bag was in a green trash bag. And they discarded it between my house and Brenda's house along the streets, halfway between. And it looks like they discarded a vape pen in the process. And so, this is stupid people. Let me just throw this bag and get rid of this vape pen, or they dropped out of their hand. The vape pen was right there. So we called the police. And they told us not to touch the bag, to preserve the fingerprints, which of course, you're supposed to do. In hindsight, I regret not looking at it, because I bet you there was a receipt in the bag for the balloons at Target.
Yeah.
But, I did what I was told to do, and I turned it over. But, I don't believe for 1 minute that the Canton police is going to come back to me and say, we found fingerprints and here's who the fingerprints belong to, because we all know it's someone sympathetic to them. And so they're not going to turn on someone sympathetic to them. That's just not what they do. They protect those people. So,
Rita, has there been any updates for you guys or no? Because I believe that, did we hear an update that it was kind of maybe going more through Mass State Police versus Canton, or was that not correct?
They said it was going to the Plymouth. So it went to Plymouth for testing. Right. Okay. So it went to Plymouth for testing. We have sent out follow-up requests. I believe it happened like on July 20th, around that time frame, 21st, something like that, or that we reported it. And so we're waiting to hear back. I believe Helena's on vacation this week, so maybe we'll hear back next week. But look, I'm not holding my breath for anything. Yeah. I went through the motions, but I do not expect much from the Canton Police Department. And that's really sad, but I don't. It's sad, but I don't.
Yeah. And you guys shouldn't have to, again, you shouldn't have to live like that. But in the 45 years, Rita, that you've been there, right? You've raised your children, your nurses.
Yes, yes.
And, you've gone through, I don't know how long Mr. Berkowitz was the chief, but was there another chief before him and then Helena, or was he at the whole time?
So let me say this. So I've been here. He hasn't been there the whole time. There were other chiefs as well. And so my ancestry goes back in this town 118 years. And so when I moved from Dedham to Canton, I that was a purposeful move, because I knew my dad had ancestors here. And even though I didn't know them, I'm related to so many people I don't even know. My great-grandmother and her sister raised 20 kids in this town. So, their offspring, I'm related to people I don't even know. Yeah. And when I was growing up, my dad brought us to Canton often to see his cousins. And one cousin was a firefighter, and the other cousin was a policeman. And they went up through the ranks, and one has since passed. But so ever since, as a child, I had tremendous admiration for the Canton Police Department. My family relatives were on the Canton Police. I had the utmost respect for them, and I still do, right? And so I grew up with this feeling of safe, secure, and proud of my town. And the Karen Reed murder case and the involvement that the Canton Police and the Mass State Police who are from Canton or Stoughton, I mean, let's face it, Canton and Stoughton are cousins, right?
Yep.
And, has shattered, my illusions of what I thought the town was. And I'm shocked at what has been revealed to us. But, and what has been revealed cannot remain status quo. We can do better. We have to do better, and we will do better. And we will rise from this. And we will unite again from this. And we could even lead other towns on the way to do this, because so many people are turning into the select board meetings or turning into the government leadership meetings or attending the meetings, and they're starting to ask questions, and they're starting to uncover what we're uncovering. And, while the select board and oversees the town, and the police chief oversees the police department, it's the people who make the decisions. It's the people who elect those people and get them appointed. And it's the people that need to start paying attention to what's going on before these people take over and we have no more voice.
I can't even agree with you any more than I do. I would like to think, though, right? So my dad also, I'm a legacy police officer daughter, right? My dad was a Waltham police officer. My dad was a police officer. My grandpa was a police officer. He was the first motorcycle police officer. And, I have always had like a reverence, you know what I mean? Just like a respect and reverence for the police. Sure. And always felt, so that was very different for me in this case, because I automatically go like this, Rita, right? Yeah. When anybody when I first heard what happened, I said, oh, poor Karen, she didn't mean to hit him, but she, I just assumed that something.
That's what they said.
I said, oh, that's what happened. And then just more and more and more information came out in 2023. As you know, when Turtle Boy, he released the initial drop, I think that was in April of 23. And, I couldn't reconcile in my brain what the DA was saying, what the court filings were. And for me as a registered nurse, Rita, what drove me over the edge where I said, oh God, I got to talk. I got to open your big fat flapping mouth, because of Officer John O'Keefe's injuries that he sustained, that somebody was trying to tell me as a registered nurse with almost 20 years of experience. I'm a wound certified clinician. Okay. And I go, like I'm looking and I'm just saying to myself, okay, I'm trying to do gymnastics in my brain to make it make sense. And I just couldn't get there. And the deeper we went, the more layers of this onion. And I feel like that's the same thing, Rita, that goes on in your town. And I hope that all towns aren't like this. You know what I mean? Stoughton
I do too.
Stoughton is, but I'm thinking about the small towns in Massachusetts, and I think of Western Mass, and I think of like, I'm Merrimack Valley. I, always was more, Middlesex County, but, and yes, there's bad eggs everywhere. A small amount, but here it feels like it goes so deep and it's been unchecked for a significant amount of time is what I keep thinking to myself. I go, this wasn't the first time, babes.
Oh, this is the first rodeo.
Yeah, I go, anytime someone's like, well, no, there's no way that it could have happened, Kim or whatever. And I'm like, this wasn't the first time anyone was calling in favors and doing solids for one another. This has been a culture that was created.
Yes, 100%. This is the third suspicious death in Canton since 2018 that is something's wrong. We had Craig Casey, who died in 2018, I believe it was, and he was driving in a car, I don't know, coming from Stoughton, and then the car got crashed. Interesting enough, the car crashed right on Pleasant Street, right near Meadows. That's where John O'Keefe lived.
Right
And
at what? Wasn't it right at his, like, if
right,
it was
right there,
right
right
at
there,
his,
right there,
yes.
right there, intersection of those two places. And Colin Albert also lived a few houses away from John O'Keefe at that time. So now you have the driver of the car, the police come, and the driver of the car, they cannot locate. Now you have a car that's been in a car accident, and there was some involvement in an accident in Stoughton. So I think it first initially hit on Stoughton, and then came forward and hit here. It would appear that the driver left the vehicle and ran someplace to hide, because the police did not find a body anywhere. And the dash cam video from that accident scene, I believe, is no longer available. And yeah, all these things, you know, of course, 42 minutes of surveillance when the Karen's car was in the Sallyport is missing too. You know, I guess, you know, you have something that goes on. Oops, we don't want people to see that. It goes missing. I don't know.
The only time that forensics doesn't matter is in Canton.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
It's wild.
Right. If you got concrete video footage that proves you committed the crime, just cut the tape. And so here is Craig Casey. And so he gets into an accident right there, a few houses away from where Colin Albert lives. I don't know if there's a connection or not, right? But the guy, there's no body. A few hours later, a passerby finds a body on the lawn.
Yeah.
And the Canton police is called back. And when people asked the chief about it later, she said, it wouldn't have made a difference to his survival. That's how you explain, not you. Just that's a cover up. That's not taking ownership for your department not finding that body. And the question is, why wasn't the body there? Why wasn't the body there?
Yeah.
You know, why did the body all of a sudden appear? Because why did we go so many hours without having a body and a passerby? That's a serious deficiency with the police department, if at best. And then you have Sandra Birchmore. The same cast of characters are in the Sandra Birchmore murder, and that was ruled a suicide. And recently was reclassified.
Yes.
And then John is another case of no body, then a body. So, you know, I mean, these are the kinds of murders that have been happening, you know, in Canton. And, you know, Craig Casey may not have been a murder, but he may have gone to someone's house to hide, died there. And, you know, maybe people helped him back to a lawn so the body wouldn't be on their property. I don't know. The Canton police can't explain it. This is just a possible explanation. And, you know, so we have issues here in this town and we have to address them. And I never, you know, I don't know how far back it goes. I raised my kids and I was working and I was trying to go to their events and trying to be a mom. So I wasn't a soccer mom. I wasn't home. I wasn't on the soccer field. You know, I went to kids' sporting events, but I wasn't, that's what I did, you know, and, you know, people that were stay at home, they saw more than I did, you know? So, this was my awakening to what was going on in this town. And I said, I have to step forward. And I did so. And many people did so at their own personal safety risk. And also, you know, it's divided our town. It's divided our families. We have family members that don't talk to us because we speak out. And what they do is they ostracize those family members. So if you speak out in this town, it's kind of like hostage taking, you know, like when you're a hostage and they hurt your family to get you to talk. Yeah. You know, they ostracize your family to get you to stop talking. And so, you know, the person speaking out isn't the only one who is suffering consequences from this. And
yeah, that's so crappy though, Rita. Like if you really like, that's like warfare, right? That you're putting people through. And I wanted to ask you, when you're saying about the people and it being divided in the town, dividing families, is there a lot of, because I always thought that was a little bit more of like that way more people were free Karen Reed than anti-free Karen Reed. Do you feel like it's the small amount that are very loud and toxic, or is there more of a divide than I'm aware?
Oh, there's more of a divide. There's more of a divide. So people, it's not she's guilty, she's not guilty. It's speaking out, not speaking out. And so from what I understand, people that have been friends and acquaintances with I guess everybody's an acquaintance with the McGalvets. They don't call anybody friends, but
Yeah.
their circle of people, you know what I mean? We learned that in court. Everybody's an acquaintance, no matter if you've known them 20 years and hung out with them and gone to beach.
No, I call him an acquaintance, a loose acquaintance. I met him. Yeah.
So in their little circles, if they force you to take a side. You're either with them or you're not. And if you do not express, oh no, we believe you and whatever, you're cut out. You are ostracized.
Yeah, that feels so mafia, doesn't it though?
It does.
Does that not feel mafia adjacent, that somebody's saying like Cosa Nostra, this is our thing, and that like if you are not with us, you're against us and you're the enemy. Right. That's a very, very dangerous type road to be walking on.
That's why the people who believe Karen Reed is innocent are shutting their mouths. They're terrified. They've been terrified. And so they've shut their mouths and they will not discuss it. If you see somebody outside of Canton and they don't know you and they ask you, oh, I don't pay attention. I don't pay attention. Don't let them kid you. They pay attention. They just don't want to say anything coming out of their mouths. Because if they say something to you and, if they say something to you and it gets repeated, all hell breaks loose for that person's family and friends. And the rain comes down on them. So that's why people are terrified to speak the truth. But I will say that more and more people are finding their voices and they're coming out to speak. I meet more and more people every single day who have found their voices and have stood up for what is right, because there is strength in numbers. And the way to beat a bully is courage, having the courage to stand up to them and to state facts. And they don't know what to do with it when you do that. A bully expects you to, get all scared and retreat. And no.
Yeah.
A bully is, no. Homie, don't play that game. That's what I say.
Don't play that. No.
Homie, don't play that game.
Yes, and I also saw, I think that I wanted to ask you about your feelings regarding, because I've been covering on TikTok. I know you're not on it, but I'm here now, babe, so we can be together.
I know. It's just the time. I'm like overloaded with messages. Yes, I got to see people say you're great.
Oh my God.
Chinese are taking our information though, so that's why I didn't really get on it, but I do love it.
Oh, well, no, and I just I have been covering Canton town meetings, right? Like I'm even do that. And I am like between John, with his chicken suit recently, because they got chicken shit for not actually having in-person meetings with you guys. Like that's part of your job, is to address your community, that we know the tensions are incredibly high. This is your time to reach out. This is your time to be diplomatic. This is time to mend fences, to show that you are not, that you're not hiding anything, that you're available for, all of your residents, and none of them want to do it. They want to actually file police reports against John in his chicken suit.
That's ridiculous. Or somebody else.
Out of your minds.
Right. And rubber ducks. They went after
rubber ducks.
Yeah, rubber ducks and fake $100 bills. That is, we have been saying for a year we want to collaborate with the select board, and we wanted to do it with the police chief, but she refused, and the select board refused. And so now here we are a year later, we realize they're never going to collaborate with us. So we're taking matters in our own hands, and we're saying, okay, what do we have to do? What do we have to do? Because they're not going to do the job.
Yeah.
And, that's what we're looking at. And, one of those things is looking at a civil rights attorney. We're looking at various different options in which we can get leadership restored in this town. because we have no leadership in this town. We can see the select board retreating to virtual meetings because there was a police failure at the last in-person select board meeting, and also a leadership failure. You know, the McGalberts plan, they never go to town government meetings because they could care less about what's going on in town government, because all they have to do is pick up a phone and they get whatever they want. Right. And
we're going to call Lank. We're going to call Lank to come back to the house after he's cleared the scene at 34 Fairview. And because Jennifer McCabe remembers something, you know, he just on his personal cell phone, I'm just going to come right back. You know, those are things that normal, regular, everyday citizens do not have access to. This is abnormal, everyone. Like, scream it from the rooftops. There should not be people that are able to contact a detective, a police officer on their personal cell to have them squirt back to the house and take another statement from me that I'm going to make up.
Exactly. And Chris Albert has done that his whole life. And this town, Chris Albert's cost this town a ton of money. Ton of money. You know, the Mike Lank lawsuit that was settled in 2007 for $300,000. That's because he reached out to his buddy, Mike Lank, who was a police officer, and Mike activated himself as a police officer, a drunken one at best, to, you know, wreak havoc with citizens that weren't doing anything.
The Lavalato brothers?
Yep. And he violated their civil rights. And, you know, the people at the select board meetings right now are the police that are there. They're standing there, God, for Chris Albert. It's not for us. It's for Chris Albert because he's scared. But he's scared of the truth. You know, that we don't come in with weapons or anything. We come in with our voices, with truth, and with our courage. That's what we come in with. But that scares him.
But that's powerful, Rita. Your voice, your words are power. He can make other things go away if he can silence you, right? He can make, you know, if you came in with a gun, he would, you know, if God, you know, whatever, I'm just saying. But like, those are things he can control. You, he can't control. Your ability to stand up and not back down because you ain't got no quit is something that is what I believe, in my humble opinion, that he has not faced previously. Okay.
Right. He has not faced it. Absolutely. And so he doesn't know what to do with it. He's used to getting his own way. He's used to, my brother is a detective and my other brother is Boston police and I run this town. All I have to do is pick up the phone and we can really, I mean, he has a history of not paying taxes, not paying his vendors. You know, he has a history of foreclosures on his houses. And I mean, all this is public record. I'm not saying anything that's not public record. You know, he hit and ran a man in 1994, killed the man.
Need a burger.
And he took off for 30 hours. And guess who paid the bill for the 30 hours that Chris Albert went in the land? The Massachusetts taxpayers. You know, he went. And then that's when he got Auntie Bev's brother to cover him.
Represent him.
So, and that was through, I understand, his connection with Mike Lank. So way back in the early 90s, him and Mike Lank, I'm under the understanding, have been in school together since kindergarten. They're like brothers. And, you know, Mike Lank does whatever Chris Albert needs him to do. So it needs to change. It's not a good look for our town. And, you know, the select board, I mean, we asked a year ago for Chris Albert to resign. He refused to resign and the select board didn't do anything and just let him sit there. And now here we are a year later and so much more has been exposed. And
after his physical, the altercation, it wasn't him technically, it was Jill Daniels. Let's be perfectly clear. But at D&E Pizza, when there was that interaction with Turtle Boy and his lady friend, that was completely wild and unprovoked during, like, he went into a restaurant and listen, people either like Turtle Boy or they don't, right? You can not like his message. You can think that he's got fresh words. I don't give one shit. He did a lot for this case. and his ability to, you know, bring attention to a case that needed it, that no one was even looking at, is forever indebted, in my opinion. I appreciate him for absolutely doing that. Now, I was shocked, and I was in shock and horror, the fact that that Chris Albert, Jill Daniels, the man who worked there, I don't remember what that man's name was.
Jim Ferris.
Jim Ferris.
He's
that
rude.
They just got to leave, though. Like, how dare you?
Yeah.
If it was the other way around, this
Right.
would have been handcuffs, silver bracelets, clink,
Yes.
clink.
Yes, witness accounts and everything. Yeah, it's just, yeah, I was there. You know, people were blowing up my phone saying, you know, Turtle Boys, that something's going on down there. So I said, get in my car, and I went down. And you know, Chris Albert saw me. He was outside the store, and then when Chris Albert saw me, he went back inside the store, and he was yelling at Turtle Boy. But I think my presence made him say, well, I better get out of here. And he went into his store. Else he would have stayed out there. I'm sure he would have. And he had just told Turtle Boy that, you know, if he could, he would smash his skull down the street. If he could, you know, well, okay, Mr. Selectman, if you could, you know, there's nothing respectable about that language coming out of a select person's mouth who's supposed to be a leader in the town. You don't go telling people to smash their skulls down in the town. And Turtle Boy did nothing to Chris Albert. Turtle Boy was having dinner in C.F. McCarthy's with Meredith. Mm-hmm. And what happened, as I'm told, is Julie Nagel and her brother were sitting at the bar, and they're on their phones. So, you know, they're telling everybody,
he's here.
Yes, he's here. So Chris Albert, who actually went to the Stoughton District Court in last October to take out a restraining order, harassment prevention order against Turtle Boy because he was afraid of Turtle Boy, all of a sudden had the courage to come out of his store and to say these things to the person he's supposed to be terrified of. And not only did Chris Albert say it, but Chris Albert's son, at least one son, said it, and other people that were there that were friends of them said it. You know, this is the way the McAlberts behave. You know, they drive around town giving people the middle finger. Colin gives the middle finger to Jen O'Donnell and everybody who disagrees with the theory that Karen did it. He has no problem giving the finger, yelling obscenities out the window. And Chris Albert, you know, is a select board. So,
but he wears the pink polo shirt, Rita. What are you talking about? He's a friggin' choir boy, that little babe. Okay, that little. You know, he definitely was trying to be represented as like an altar server, right? Yeah. I was like, who is this little? And I was like, no way. When he ever got on the stand in his polo, I go, oh Jesus.
Oh yeah. But, and he lied through his teeth. They all did. They all did. They all did.
Yeah, and we now are going through like what we're doing, Rita, and I'd love to have you on, babe.
Yes.
I was going to do like go back through some specific testimony because we have gone through, it was such a whirlwind while it was all happening and we picked out so much stuff. But when I go back and even watch my clips, I go, oh my gosh, I forgot. Like,
yes.
I feel like there was so much that was thrown at us and the lies and the inconsistency by the time we got to the end. Because when you were hearing from Chris Albert, when you were hearing from Brian Albert, Nicole, Coco, all of them, Julie, you know, you didn't know what you knew at the end, right? Yes. When we got to Guarino, when we got to Crash Daddies, when we got to all of the data coming together. And I was like, my brain was like exploding. I was like, oh gosh, it looks so different to me to look back. So I think absolutely it was. Yeah.
And I just saw something recently that somebody showed the testimony that, you know, some of these jurors might've been hanging their hat on. Well, the testimony, the interviews were done 18 months after the fact. I mean, you can't go, that's not testimony. But
we interviewed Aruba, the Slutty Sullivan sisters. Right. We interviewed them, but we did not interview someone in that house at 34 Fairview.
Jesus,
take the wheel.
It makes exactly. Jesus take the wheel. Absolutely. It makes no sense. Let's go up. And Brian Higgins, you know, he's a pansy. He's a pansy. He's such a pansy, right? So he is, scorned because, look, Karen reached out to him for whatever reason. We've all been there,
Yeah.
somebody you love doesn't show you love and you want to make sure you're lovable. So you reach out to, who hasn't done that, right?
Stella needed to get her groove back, Rita. Okay.
Yeah,
You just needed attention. All I needed was you to
exactly.
tell me I'm pretty for a week.
Exactly.
Then leave me alone, you stage 5 clinger.
Exactly. And so, as I recall, she went to his place and that was the end of it. She gave him a kiss and she got the hell out of there,
Yeah.
which I would have done too.
Yeah.
I heard from someone who was fixed up on a date with Brian Higgins, and the person left after 15 minutes, said, no, this guy can't even carry on a conversation. He is not good with women. And, and so when he was rejected by her because she ghosted him, he said, okay, I'm going to help set her up for murder. What an ass. Really? Yeah. Your feelings are hurt so bad that you're going to participate in this. And you're not only going to participate, you're going to tell, the McAlberts about the Sullivan sisters, who, by the way, if the younger one is listening, you were not impressive, you little trashy mouth. Okay, you little trashy mouth. And not for a second did I think you were innocent with John. Just to get this straight, Mr. Trashy Sister. I'm just like.
She planted one on him. I call it the elevator incident. I said, she tried to.
Yes. And she thought she was so cool when she said, Karen sucks. Really? How descriptive is that? I mean, she, the little sister did not impress me at all. So, the older sister, I don't recall anything. I
called her a full-faced vixen, the little sister, right? And the oldest sister, the only problem I had, Rita, was when she tried to say that Karen had gone. Now, listen, of course, I'm way into this case. My humans know I'm too deep, right? She's too deep. But when they had gone out to dinner the first night of Aruba, and Laura's trying to paint her as some kind of asshat, Karen, that she wanted to pay for the 6 people that were out at supper. And I was like, oh, what a bitch. They're paying for us. What an evil, murderous whore. What are you talking about?
Yes. It's like, and Karen was so bad with John's niece. Oh, what did she do? She bought her Dunkin' Donuts. She bought her Dunkin' Donuts coffee, and she took her to a beauty parlor to get the kids' hair done beautiful. Oh, that's terrible. Oh my God. And I bet you Kaylee's mother would be very disappointed that there was a woman actually showing her daughter love who lost both her mother and her father. And incidentally, when Kaylee did go to court, guess what somebody bought her? A big, large iced Dunkin' Donuts coffee as she walked across the street. So the same thing that they criticized Karen for, somebody had done for Kaylee as she's going into the court. So it couldn't have been so bad. I mean, give me a break. So and
even when I looked in, Rita, when I remember when I was going through the text messages and everyone saying Karen's crazy, right? Look at these text messages and look at her fighting with John. I've been with Mr. Nurse Kim for almost 19 years. Babe, when I tell you we've had good years and we've had bad years, we have 2 children, 13 and 14 years old are my daughters. And, that's looking like a decent year between him and I. Okay. People fight, right? We have, we argue, we bicker, we do whatever. I'm annoyed by you. You're pissing me off. I put a pillow, you know what I mean? And I never was behind the fact, or I could never get my mind around that Karen was guilty of something. And then she left 40, she was sending text messages and leaving
53
voicemails.
Yeah.
I said, are you
That's how somebody would kill,
right?
Right.
Yeah.
She was not supposed to stay in Canton that night. And she dropped him off and left shortly after 12:30 because she was home at 12:36.
12:36, yeah.
Right. She was home at 12:36. And she's already calling him at 1 o'clock. That's not even 20 minutes. And that's because when she dropped him off, she didn't want to go inside. And he just wanted to go inside and, who knows, right? He had no idea what was waiting for him. And he went inside and he was supposed to text her that everything was okay, which is why she pulled up. She was waiting for the text that never came.
Yes.
And so then when she got home, she is like, okay, he never texted me. He never did anything. And then, her mind goes a little crazy. Like, I mean, her mind goes to a different place. I mean, who hasn't thought, maybe he's with somebody else, right?
Of course.
And she loved him, and she was so good that she didn't leave his children, even though she said, your kids are home alone. That was her way of getting him home.
Getting his attention. So if she had, right, let's say, right, because now he hasn't answered her and she goes, this is what I'm going to say. She knew damn right well, because we know. So she says, I'm going to say this and he's going to answer me. And when he didn't, here is the thing, is that for me, specifically her going that route shows me there was absolutely, it never happened. It never happened. She did not hit him with a vehicle at all.
Right. And she, regardless of what she said to him, somebody who just murdered somebody isn't calling them 53 times crazed because they're not responding. Yeah. You look at that. I don't know how that jury, and I was in the courtroom the first few weeks. Yes. I was in the courtroom, and I saw the jury, and I don't know how the jury can look at the clip of her running around that car and not seeing a traumatized woman and seeing the other people standing there like nothing's going on. And I will say this too, what was really disappointing for me is that in the courtroom, they had a small monitor and only the judge and the jury could really see the monitor. None of the Karen's family could see it, but not really great. And the victim's family couldn't see anything that was on that monitor. So when the defense is presenting the case, and even the prosecution is presenting the case, whatever is up on that monitor, that family should be entitled to see.
Yes.
All families, everybody in there should have a clear view. And I couldn't help but thinking, if we were in a sporting arena, if we were in a corporation, where you're in a conference room, you would have way more video capabilities than what that courtroom had. And I wonder if that was deliberately to not to contain the evidence that the family saw, because the family could not see what was put up on that screen. And Paul O'Keefe and his wife would sometimes turn like this.
Yes.
Would turn like that because it was right there. And even with that kind of a view, they couldn't see. And so that was improper, in my opinion.
What's so offensive too is that Craig from the defense, right? Our guy with the little small table, Alan Jackson had requested that the defense provide all of the not optics, or like all of the visual, they wanted to be helpful with everything so that they were able to present appropriately to not only the jury, but to the family and to everyone else. And Judge Canoni shot that motion down and said, nope, we're going to go and we're going to do the old fashioned way, the Commonwealth way. And Miss whoever sat up in the front, I'm so sorry. And she's important. I just can't remember her name right now. That she would put everything up, So it's just like, why would you prevent an ability to show the truth? Because the DA and Judge Canoni is supposed to be looking for justice. They're supposed to do justice, Rita. And since day one, there has been a vendetta of pinning it on the girl. In my humble opinion, this is all thoughts and opinions. But I don't understand why they can't see the forest for the trees like the rest of us are going, oh, we got problems. Houston, we got problems here.
Right. Maybe they don't want to see the forest for the trees.
Yes. There it is. There it is, Rita. Okay. How about, don't have a blonde moment, Kim.
Here we go. Here we go to court yesterday. And I only saw a little bit. I was outside of court. I only saw a little bit, but I know that Alan, or what's his name? Weinberg.
Marty, yeah.
Marty. Yeah. He's good. He's good. I heard a couple of snippets. He's good. And, and he presented well. So, the fact that they're even there, and you have Lally, who he is a prosecutor. You're supposed to do right by the people.
Yes.
And to try to advocate form over substance, as a reason why not to do justice is wrong. And we know so many reasons that man should not be in his job. And I think he was picked because of his incompetence. I really do. I don't think anybody with half a brain would have taken that case. I think they took it and they gave it to him. And I believe that at the beginning of the trial, when Auntie Bev said, "Oh, when you object, you don't have to give a reason, just object and, whatever." Well, of course, because if they had to give a reason, Lally doesn't know why he was objecting. Lally was so she was making it easy and I'm going to say that's in my opinion, to protect myself legally.
They're all opinions, yes.
Yeah, all opinions. But in my opinion, if Lally had just half a brain, he could be able to call up the case law that supports his objection or whatever, and he couldn't. So she said, you don't have to give us the reason why. Like she's doing the defense a favor. Let's just say that she has never done the defense one favor whatsoever. So why would she do the defense a favor? Because Lally didn't know why he was objecting. So she was going to help him out. You object.
Holding his hand, Rita.
Yeah.
He held his hand the whole trial.
She absolutely did. And he was so accustomed to objecting that I'll never forget that he was standing to object before Alan Jackson even asked the question. And he goes, "Your Honor, I haven't even asked the question," and he's standing. And so, look, there was a lot of things that they all worked together on, and it didn't come off clean looking to the public. It did not. And I do not feel the way that judge handled that case, the rulings that she made, the decisions that she made were for transparency and for justice. I don't. You don't have evidence shown where everybody can't see it. You just don't do that. And she handcuffed the defense. The entire way through. So, it's a problem. People have asked in the comments about the police audit. And if I can just mention that. So the request for proposal, called an RFP, in the business world and in government too, when you need services, you put out a request for proposal, RFP, and then people see it and they bid on it. The request for proposal has been put out, or is being put out early next week by the 15th by the town of Canton. So I will get you that information. I believe it's in some comms database, municipal database. But we would really appreciate if everyone who knows anyone who works for a firm that does police audits. We're looking for someone across the country. We're looking for wherever. We want somebody who has nothing to do with Canton and nothing to do with any
of the Commonwealth. Yeah, we want it to be completely independent. Independent.
Right. And so we have a comprehensive scope of services that we're looking for. And it's going to get posted August 15th. And the deadline to return quotes is September 30th.
Okay.
And the quotes have to come back this is the municipal way of doing it, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but okay. The way the bids have to come back is they have to come in a FedEx envelope. One has the scope of services and their proposal, and then the other one in a sealed envelope, in a FedEx envelope, has their bid. If they put the two of them in together, it gets tossed out. So that's just the way it works.
Okay.
And it's a different kind of process, but it is that's the process. So we really need people. Anyone who knows people who do this kind of work, please let them know that we have a citizen-driven police audit proposal, RFP, out there from 8:15 to 9:30, and people need to send them in by that deadline. And, we have been afforded $200,000. And the way these bids come back, their 5 committee members are going to rank them 1, 2, and 3 based on the services that are being provided.
Mm-hmm.
They rank them, and then they open up the envelope. I don't understand why the process is this way, but okay. And then they open up the envelope and they say, okay, bidder number 1 bid this. Do we want to go with this bidder? If they say no, they go to bidder number 2, but they can't go back to bidder number 1. So what the people are proposing for services must be complete and must have, a reasonable bid.
Yes.
And we need them to bid on this. We want to get the best in here. So we want anyone and everyone who can bid on this to place bids on this so that we can get the best firm in here.
I'm putting the word out I'll put it out on TikTok and I'll put it on the Twitter, Rita, for us.
Yes, so and I'll get you the spec. I'll get you the information. That'd be awesome. So that people just spread it. Anyone who knows anybody who works for a firm that does this kind of work, we need them to get this RFP, which will be available. CPA firm can audit. No, it's because it's not a financial audit. It's a policing practice audit. It's an audit of the police policies and procedures. So that's a good question. So it's not an audit per se of the financials, although financials
overtime.
Yeah, we're going to look at the overtime. And the overtime I don't believe is in the audit. But I have to go back and look at that. Maybe there's language in there that could incorporate. I don't know. But we are going to look at the overtime because clearly something's wrong there as well. So it is a police audit of the policies and procedures and their adherence to the policies and procedures.
Okay. That is such good information on that. And Rita, can you tell me when you were in court, right? Because you've made from what I remember, Babs, you were in the car, right? Like you were driving some days to court with the Reed family. Is that correct, or am I lying?
No, I didn't. I live in Canton. I didn't drive, but I did go to lunch when they went to lunch. I went to lunch.
Lovely. Yeah.
We went to lunch.
That's wonderful. And do you feel like? And I think, to me, right, when Karen comes out and she goes to the standouts, or when she, sees you, I'm sure becomes friends with you and knows you and knows what you're doing and how much you're putting of yourself out there every day for her, I've always included or my brain has wrapped around that Karen understands that we all could be her, right? And we all stand with her, the ones of us that do. And whether we're helping with the defense fund, whether it is, showing up outside of Norfolk Superior Court, whatever we can do to help, I think that she takes that incredibly close to her heart and she appreciates it.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. And I just was wondering, could you tell us how, if you've been in contact, she looked beautiful. Okay. And that powder blue suit yesterday, I said, look at her putting blue on for John.
Yes,
right?
I loved it. It was so good.
Mm-hmm. But how is Mr. Reed? How is Mrs. Reed? How is Karen doing, if you know?
Okay. So I haven't seen them since the trial ended, although I did see them yesterday, but it was all in passing. And I didn't see eye to eye with Karen because she walked past, but I was there. And look, they are an incredible family, and they have been put through hell. And they are, and I say this for the attorneys too, they are overwhelmed with the outpouring of love, compassion, and support that they've received from the supporters. And, even the lawyers say it, there's been nothing like this, there's been nothing like this. And we are simply doing what we would want someone to do for us, what we would need someone to do for us. And, we're all in this together. So the family is a great family. And, I miss seeing them. I've seen some clips. Actually, the other day I was looking at some videos that my fiance had taken on the sidewalk, and that's just a few clips. And
Mhm.
the sidewalk was so much fun. It was using your voice to stand for truth and justice and having the courage to do it. And more people came out every single day. It started off probably with 20 people. And it was the 20 people who would have been in the courtroom had the court not go to a smaller courtroom.
Mhm.
So we couldn't get in, I got in for some of the trial, and then so many people wanted to get in, and I was fine on the sidewalk. I like the sidewalk because I can be me. In the courtroom,
Yes.
I have to shut my mouth and for
Fancy,
8
but
hours
yes.
in school. So,
Mhm.
it's like, and as a problem solver, I just want to solve a problem,
Yes.
So, but I love the sidewalk. And it was more and more people came, and the love and the camaraderie, and people came from all over the world
Literally.
just to feel it, to feel the love and the excitement, and just it's a feeling like
the searching for it feels almost electric, right, Rita? Like
Yes.
I don't recall anything else, right, that I can say or put my finger on as being just a registered nurse who loves trials and coverage and commentating, but to be like a local girl, you know what I mean? And to be like, oh my gosh. And to feel so connected to a community in seeking justice for Officer John O'Keefe and for Karen Reed. And that's a simultaneous seeking of justice. It is not for Karen. It is not just for John. It is because I believe Officer John O'Keefe's life was taken, and I believe it was unjust because it was not by Karen Reed, in my opinion. So, I think that this group is very special, and it's not bullshit. It's not, oh, we want to get something or do something. It's standing up for something that's very hard, that you're very scared to do, right? When I first went to go see Sean, I went on Sean's show first, Rita, and I was like, ugh, and I was the only nurse that put my face on the camera because everyone else that worked in Massachusetts was afraid. We were like, oh God, is somebody gonna, we were just like fearful of it. And I was like, let's go. Right. Let's go, Kim.
Right.
And then that gave me the confidence to say, okay, well, open your mouth a little wider, open your mouth a little louder, and try to bring the noise and bring in the positive noise, right? Like to be like, look away, don't allow them to say, just because the DA is selling you this bill of goods does not mean it is real, guys,
And that's a hard concept to we are used to, if the prosecutor says, this person committed this crime, I was of the mindset, listen, if the person was charged, the person had to be somewhere near the vicinity, there has to be some guilt to get charged. Not anymore. Not anymore. Right. They've successfully popped that balloon. I never thought a person, maybe I was naive, but the cases that you hear about, especially the big cases, if somebody gets a murder case, if somebody gets arrested, you think that they got pretty good evidence because that's what you're supposed to have.
Yes.
And, you don't think that you're going to be gaslit by the prosecution. You don't think the judge is going to be biased against the defense. But then you see it with your own eyes and you say, something's wrong here. I have to stand up. And the more people speak up and the more people see other people speak up, they go, I can do that. I can do that. They are even bringing their children to teach their children, this is how you do it. It is an incredible grassroots movement that it continues to grow. And, and we are ever so happy because it's helping all of us. What we do here in Canton is going to help all of us. It's leading the way on how to address issues in your town.
Yes.
And right wrong situations. And that's what we're working to. We are not going to accept this situation anymore. We're not. We've tried for over a year to work with the select board, to work with the chief of police. They have no interest. They've made it very clear. So now we're going to do what we need to do to help our town come back together, because it's all about coming back together. It's all about trusting, and it's all about doing what's right. We all need to be law abiding. It is not, we have a lawless group of people and then everybody else has to follow the law. No, we all have to follow the law. And I think the biggest thing that has come out of this is, and, maybe I've just been busy living life and haven't really been watching, but, call me naive, but, I thought that law enforcement were upholding the law. And, and I think for the most part, they are. But we have checks and balances in the system that are not working or are non-existent, where this population of rogue policing, right, and maybe rogue legal system, needs to be corrected, because it makes everyone look bad. And, we need to fix it. We need to fix it, and we need to root out unlawfulness. We need to root it out and hold people accountable.
And, and that's the thing, Rita, is that, like, we support police officers,
Absolutely.
right? I know that, all the good cops in my life, right, have reached out to me privately, via message, even publicly, some of them, and said, we don't stand for any of this shit that's going on in Canton. Okay. That would have never flown. That case would have never been brought forward. What are you talking about? Right. Starting from day one, Rita, day one on January 29th, 2022, it's been a shit show. Right. And they've somehow continued to barrel ass it through. And, justice be damned. And we're just going to keep going, because we've got to keep going. Somebody's got to pay for this. We have an officer whose life has been lost, and we're in my opinion, we're pinning it on the girl. She's going to be the easiest one to get down.
That's what they said. I mean, I think they said pin it on the girl. Pin it on the girl. Tell them the guy never went in the house.
Oh, the guy.
And there was a man passed out in the snow. She knew what that man's name was. She knew exactly what that man's name was. And she did. She most definitely did that Google search at 2:27 in the morning. And she absolutely did. And she could say whatever she wants. And, they think that they have the people in this town under their, terrorist approach, silent. And what they don't realize is people are talking. And more people are talking. And some of them are even their relatives that are talking. And they're saying, listen, some of them have started to find their voice, and they're coming out. And some of them say, listen, I can't say anything because my kids are in school with these people, and these people run the sports teams.
Yeah.
And these people have influence in the town on who gets on, and it can impact your children. So people are trying to protect their children. But, we need to stand up for what is right, and we need to do it. And the police audit is one way to try to remedy this. It's not an end all be all, not at all. It's just a starting point in, we have the police audit. Now we have the police salaries that clearly indicate something's wrong. Because anybody managing a budget of payroll knows that those overtime hours and stipends are out of whack. They're out of whack. And so we're going to be, gathering information, doing frequent FOIA requests to get the payroll information to be able to determine what's going on here. And we also know that the Canton Police has been writing off police details, on their select board meetings. We've heard it. We write it off. And then when you question them on it, it's kind of like, well, it's kind of our way of giving them a discount. Well, I've worked for companies for many years, And when you request a service, you give a purchase order, so that when you need to collect money on that service, you reference that purchase order. You owe me this money because here's my purchase order.
Of course.
And so with purchase orders, I don't understand why these fees aren't collected. And if there's an unwritten rule or law that they're working with that gives these firms that require police details certain discounts, then we need that on the books. We shouldn't be doing this. We need it on the books. If you're going to give them a certain rate, then give them that certain rate. Don't do it by squashing invoices, letting them go past due for several months, up to over a year. I mean, that's not the way to run a business. So, it's not. So the police audit is going to be very important, and also that, and there's so much more, and that continues to come out, and we just need to keep getting the message out there for people to find their voice, stand up, look at what's going on in their backyards, look at what's going on in their town government, because the people in your town government, they support other people who support other people who end up in higher positions. Yeah. So it all starts in our hometown. Look at who your candidates are. Look at who you have voted to protect you, to protect your rights and look after you, and pay attention to what they're doing. Because if they're not doing the job, then you need to get somebody else in there to do the job for you.
Absolutely. And Rita, when is the next? So you ran, and you listened to me. Okay.
Yeah.
Should have got in, babes. Okay. I looked at the board. They did it on a friggin' whiteboard, Rita. I remember when it was all happening. I was like, oh my Lord. But I know that you were an angel face, and you were running with, you had like a team approach, you and Trisha, and Trisha got on.
She didn't do a team approach. I did.
So one of you was part of a team.
Yeah, I was a team. I'm a team player, because nobody can do this anything. You need people. Right. You need a team to be successful.
Well, God bless you for doing it, right? And of course she gets on. And I have a question of, when is the next cycle, right? Like, is it 2 years? Is it when does that come up?
John Conley is up in April. And he's been on for 34, 35 years. So he's up in April. Mm-hmm. And I believe he'll run again. And he's the only one. So it's like, every year somebody transitions out. So they have 3-year terms. And they stagger them. So every year somebody comes out. So, we need to evaluate if we need to recall anyone. Mm-hmm. We need to, we're exploring our options, but right now the select board is not leading. They are cowards. And by going to the, it was bad enough they held us to 3 minutes. It was bad enough that Jen gets assaulted for going 15 seconds over. It's bad enough you had a bunch of McGalbots in the audience who were allowed to heckle and yell stuff at both me and Jen and not get addressed, but then Jen gets assaulted. We need to evaluate who's in those positions and how best can we get our town with the right leadership. And right now we don't have leadership. We do not.
Yeah.
And that's why we needed 2 people on the board. Mm-hmm. And, I ran as a team, and, she did not. And she did not want to run as a team, which is fine, but that didn't stop her from calling me on a regular basis and collaborating with me. It didn't stop me from helping her improve her campaign strategy, because I still worked as a team, even though I knew she wasn't. And I told people wanted to bullet vote me. And bullet voting, for people who don't know, there were 2 candidates there were 2 votes you could cast. Right. There were 2 votes that you could cast. And you could pick 2 people. There were 2 incumbents and there were 2 challengers. Trisha and I were the challengers. So if you really want your vote, your candidate to win, you bullet vote them. And you don't vote the second vote, you throw it away. people wanted to bullet vote me, and I asked them to vote for the two of us because I knew that to be successful, we needed two voices on that board, and not one, two.
Yeah.
And so, that's what I did. So every vote for me was a vote for Trish. So her landslide vote was not her landslide vote. Her landslide vote was my votes plus whatever votes she got. Aww. And, and it is what it is, because I wouldn't have been able to do what I have done if I had won the election, because I would have been restrained from being able to voice my opinion the way I voice it as a selectman of this town. And I feel I'm far more effective doing what I'm doing right now. And someone wants to know, was Trooper Fanning really in charge of the jurors? Yeah, he was. Yes, he was.
You heard it here, babes.
Yep. Yes,
you heard it here.
Yes, yes, he was. Now that doesn't. If that doesn't spell corruption, I really don't know what I can say. But this is a man who was one of the ones who arrested Turtle Boy. He's also involved in the case. He was listed as a potential witness on the case, but that didn't stop the emboldened people in power from putting him in charge of that jury. And every time that jury walked out of that room, they left their white spiral notebooks on the chairs. And I'm sure when those white spiral notebooks got locked up, they were easy access to anyone who wanted to access them, including Lieutenant Fanning or whatever his position is. So he, and listen, it's statistically impossible for Jim, the guy who pulled the numbers out of the bingo spindle,
friggin' Jim,
turned them around to eliminate those jurors that were pro Karen Reed. It's statistically impossible for him to do that. And when he spun it and he pulled out the numbers, the first thing I noticed, everybody knows when you play bingo, they flip the number around and they show you the number. He didn't do that. He didn't do that. That was
Rita.
He did not do that. The person in the court, his name is Jim. There's two Jims. I think it's the one they call Jimbo.
Okay.
But when he spun it and he pulled out the numbers, he read the numbers, but he didn't do the honor system with the numbers. Go look at it. He did not do it.
Rita, I'm blacked out right now. Okay.
Yes, he did not do it.
We've all had questions about the old bingo balls. We were like, okay, but we weren't there. So I assumed that the balls were shown.
No, they weren't. No, they weren't. And there was also chatter, and I didn't see this, so I don't know how true it was, and I never asked to confirm. But at the same time, I heard from people who were in the courtroom that Alan Jackson wanted to see the numbers, and Jim went storming out of the room. So I didn't see that myself. Somebody who was in the courtroom told me that there was something happened between the two of them, and he went running out. Jim went running out of the courtroom. So I'm sure. So here's what we do know for your viewers that don't know. Mm-hmm. There was a woman who was speaking poorly about Karen's demeanor or whatever, and 3 jurors, and she kept doing it. And you're not supposed to form an opinion on the defendant until you hear everything. So apparently she was expressing some negativity. And so they reported it to the court. And so after interviewing the woman and after interviewing these 3 jurors, the woman who was saying things was dismissed. The 3 women stayed. And the 3 women they knew were pro Karen. And so one woman that just before the deliberations, it was said without evidence that she was in a bar talking about the case. And so she was eliminated. She was one of the 3 that reported this other woman. The other 2 women that reported the other woman were the numbers that got drawn out of the spindle, whatever you call it, and nobody saw the numbers. Now, statistically, that's impossible.
Yes.
It's impossible. But that's what happened. That's what happened. And that's a problem. And then I'm sure because that stunk real bad, that is how they realized. I'm just speculating on this, but the more you dig down, the more you find. And the guy in charge of the jurors happens to be a guy who was a witness on the case and also an arresting officer of Turtle Boy and God knows what else. And he was on the text messages with Michael Proctor. So, that is not somebody who's
Rita,
unbiased.
was he on the potential witnesses? Because when I looked back, okay. Because when the final witnesses list came out, Lieutenant Fanning wasn't on it for the defense or the prosecution, from what I saw, and I pulled what was from the court records. But that's what I thought was so even more interesting, is that's how they got around it, right? So if he was on the potential list, right, and then the prosecution took him off of their potential list, and then he could have had his be in charge of the security in theory, right? Because he's not associated or on the piece of paper that was finalized and submitted, but he was involved regarding the text messages as Trooper Proctor's superior. However, that didn't come out till 3/4 of the way through the trial. So he would have already been doing it since April. You know what I mean? So like, that was where I thought that almost made sense, that, if you wanted to make sure that you had someone that was Mass State Police and somebody who was on your team that would not, fly the straight arrow, right? Fly crow, whatever, the crow flies straight. You would want to have Fanning because he's in the shits already, right?
Yeah, I mean, he should not have been anywhere near those
at
jurors.
all.
No, whether he's on the witness list or not, he was on that text chat. He was on the text chat, right? He was one of the ones that arrested Turtle Boy. Yeah. He's too close to the case. He has a vested interest in the outcome of that case.
Well, and it's so interesting, because if Bev was going to allow the witnesses to discuss their harassment or to discuss what had happened to them from Turtle Boy, which she said, I'm not squashing, or I'm not putting any barriers on what people want to talk about if it comes up, right? You remember we were like, we need that, and the prosecution and defense were in agreement that they didn't want to have Turtle Boy come up at all. But Bev said, I'm not putting the reins on it.
Yeah. So I think here's my interpretation of that is Lally said he didn't want it, but he really did. And so this way, Bev could say what I wanted.
It worked. He's just holding his hand.
Yeah. Lally does nothing for the defense. Nothing. So I believe that Lally wanted it, but they said, you know what? Make it look like you don't want it either, and I'll be the one who does it. And so, and if you notice, anytime one of the witnesses got in trouble, like Allie McCabe, then she cried and brought up Turtle Boy harassment.
Yes.
And, they wanted to introduce it, and, they weren't successful, really. No, that whole thing, that whole process.
I took that at face value. Damn it, Rita.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you for bringing me back.
Yes, exactly. Yes, you can't trust anything. And that's the sad thing about it, because we should be able to, and I'll say the same thing about Channel 5. I will never watch Channel 5 again, because Channel 5 was reporting everything that prosecution wanted them to report, and did not report what the defense had. And they did that for so long. And that also caused division in the community and all around. Because if you're only, publishing one side of the story, and a pretty slanted side of the story, and you don't even attempt to share the other side of the story, that's propaganda. That's propaganda. And they're part of causing the divide, because the people that saw the truth, there was only one way to get the truth, and that was from Turtle Boy. And that's he was the one who was, publishing it. So that's why they hate him so much, because he was doing their job. and they chose not to do their job. They wanted her to go down. And
they only came in, right? Like it was, I always think everyone's a puss, right? And I don't like pusses, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but I don't, sorry to be fresh, but like, if you don't stand for something, guys, this is to all of my lovies. If you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything, babes. And it's very important for you, for all of us, that, you know, just stand by what you know morally in your heart. Something isn't right here. This doesn't feel good, like feel up on the up and up. That, you know, that I'm seeing something that's an injustice. If we don't do anything about it as just local citizens, then it will happen to you next, right? Like, oh, it's not my problem, I don't need to worry about it. Well, it could be you next, because that's where it leads to the continuing of the culture.
Right. And I've read, and it's so true, when good people stay silent, bad people take over.
Amen.
And our freedom is not free. We get very complacent, I think, as a country. We forget the men and women who fought for this country, who gave their lives, who gave tremendous sacrifices for this country. Well, they fought for what we have, and they're still fighting for what we have. We have to fight for it too. We have to fight for it with facts. We are living in a world where gaslighting is this thing that has taken over, and we cannot let gaslighting take over. We have to insist on facts, you know, irrefutable facts, you know, to draw conclusions. We cannot, just because somebody says something doesn't mean it's true. You know, we have to look at various sources of information to determine what is real and what is not. But we need to stamp out gaslighting, and that's what's happening. We're being gaslit. You know, I never listened to YouTube before a year ago, before Turtle Boy. Turtle Boy was my first introduction to YouTube. I know. And I never did, you know, because I was just like, it was just mainstream, and I really didn't watch a lot of TV. It was that Netflix. And I see the value of YouTube, the value of independent media, because we are doing the job that the big ones aren't doing. We're not taking that anymore. You know, there was that movie, we're mad as hell, we're not taking it anymore.
Absolutely.
It's an old movie, you know, but we need, if we're not going to get facts shared with us, then we're going to get the facts ourselves, and we're going to initiate the change that we need, because we are intelligent people. We work together as a team, and we move forward with positivity and love, and we can do anything. And we do not have to buy stuff that is on TV that doesn't make sense. Independent media, I am convinced, has a very huge role in the direction of this country. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know,
I agree. Rita, do you want to take, if you see any questions that you want me to pull up, and then I'm going to let you go, my beautiful queen, because I only asked you for 1 hour, and I appreciate everything about your face. And I would like to have you back on.
I'll definitely come back on, and I will also get information to you about the audit, so that we can get that posted so people know where to tell their friends to go. I'm also waiting to hear information, because somebody might have collected a list of firms, so they may not know that their friend works for an audit firm. We want to get the word out there for people to look at this request for proposal and submit bids for it, because we want the best person for the job. Yeah. And so we're okay with that. I don't see, I did see some questions. The audit I explained. Sorry. And they can ask me questions next time. I'm all for answering the questions. I appreciate you having me on the show. I think it's great. I'm going to start watching TikTok, although it's going away at the end of the year, right? Isn't it going away?
Listen, it's not. I'm going to pray for it. Okay.
Oh,
all
okay.
Right.
Yes, but the Chinese have all our information.
And I'm like this, Rita, this is me. Take it, babe. Just let me have the TikTok, okay? Take all the info. I got nothing. You're not finding shit, okay?
Yeah.
You know, maybe a slutty Sullivan sister, her phone number.
Yeah.
You know. Anywho, so that is it. And again,
Yes.
Rita, you are so special, and I know that everybody loves you, but I love you, and my
Thank
lovies
you.
love you,
Thank you so
and
much.
we just you inspire us to want to just take action in our communities, because you are so right about it's the local change. Because no offense, guys,
Yes.
we all know this, right? Like our presidents, like the government, the big government, right? Whether it's Congress, whether it's the president, whether it's whatever, that doesn't affect our day to day. It's our local, it is our local select boards, it's our police departments, it's how our schools are managed. Those are the things that are going to really affect you as citizens in your day to day life. And Rita is our, our protocol for you see something, stand up for it, and don't back down. We
Right.
don't back
That's right.
down.
No, and you stand up, and you stand up with courage, and you stand up with a smile on your face, because they don't know what to do with that. They're used to somebody quivering or somebody
Yes.
running scared. They don't know what to do when you just be yourself. Just be yourself. Stand
Yeah.
up, speak the truth, insist on accountability. And somebody just asked me a question. I just happened to see it.
Yeah.
Do I think that the O'Keefe's, Mrs. O'Keefe and Paul O'Keefe are brainwashed? I know that the dad knows Karen didn't do it. I know that. And I know that he adored Karen. So I'm sure his heart is in the right place for Karen. Mrs. O'Keefe, I think, is surrounded by evil women. And, they call themselves Peggy's Angels. I'm not sure why. I can guess maybe because they helped her take care of her grandchildren when she lost her daughter, which is a tragic situation, and then she lost her son-in-law. But the women that surround Mrs. O'Keefe are evil. They're mean women, evil, mean women. And so I believe that she has been brainwashed. Paul, I don't understand Paul whatsoever. Paul sat in that courtroom for 10 weeks. I watched the trial for 10 weeks. And I don't understand how, when Paul gets interviewed, he hangs his hat on Katie McLaughlin, who I believe was interviewed 18 months after the fact, saying, I hit him. I hit him. None of the evidence points to that. And if Paul just looked at the scientific evidence and took the personalities out of this, the truth is right in front of you. And so I don't know Paul. I don't know Erin. I don't know any of them. And I believe one woman in the courtroom is Erin's sister. She's the heavy woman. That's what I've heard. She's her sister. And she was the one that was caught telling one of the witnesses to shush when she was almost revealing where the picture was taken, which is believed to be at one of Auntie Bev's cottages. Maybe it was on Pompanesett Beach, but they were at her cottage. That's just what I heard. I don't know. I don't know about them, but I pray for them. I pray for them because Karen did not kill their loved one. And, I know losing a loved one is devastating. I have two brothers that lost their children, firstborn children, in 2018. One was 27, one was 23. I know what that does to a family, let alone a daughter, a son-in-law, and then a son murdered by people that you believe are your friends. That's got to be something hard to accept. So, I don't really know, but I pray for them, and I pray for justice for Karen and John O'Keefe. And let's just keep spreading the word, and we are going to be better off, all of us, for what's going on here in Canton. I believe this is a turning point for this country, and I believe that we have everything we know, everything that we need to know to do and right our systems. So go to your town meetings, listen to your town meetings, keep listening to ours, spread the word, and we've got this. We've got this. So thank you so much, Nurse Kim. I really appreciate you having me. And I'll come back in anytime.
Oh, we love you, Rita. And thank you again. You have a wonderful rest of your Saturday, my dear.
Thank you. You too. Have a good one. And
Bye.
Bye.
Lovies. I feel like that was incredible. I love Rita. Like, I love her. I think that she is so kind of earnest in just wanting things to be better, right, guys? Like, she's just literally a grassroots human who is looking for community change, and she's fighting for justice for Officer John O'Keefe, and she's fighting for justice for Karen Reed. And we're going to stand by her, and I'm going to keep, I'm not going to shut up. I'm not going to stand down. And I want to encourage us all to find our voices, however it is, because your voice matters, right? When we talked to Attorney Betterow, and he let us know that making these small choices and just trying to keep yourself educated on what's going on in other cases and local things, that's the best way for us to make change. And I'm off the soapbox, but I love your faces. And tonight I am going on Calling All Beings at 7:00 with Mr. Betterow and Mr. Peter Murphy. And Mike Crawford might get in trouble with me, because if he keeps mentioning me on his show and not being as wonderful as he should, I'm gonna give him a little smack on the nose. Boop. Okay, love your face. I'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.